I don't think there's a little boy in the world that doesn't play Army at some point. You tend to glorify military service and war, and you know, honestly, it brings out the best in men and the worst in men. I got out of the military in the mid-'80s, and I was fine for quite a while. I was with my son's mom, and our relationship broke down, and I can't assign a percentage of what to do with what. It was in there somewhere, you know, in my military experience. I ended up, after we separated, drinking more and doing drugs more. Kind of said the hell with it and ended up on the street. And I was homeless for almost 3 years. I basically just had given up. When I was a heavy drug user, drank an awful lot. You know, I was never, you know, I was around people that sold a lot of drugs, sold a fair amount myself, but I wasn't out, you know, committing violent crime. You're gonna throw me in, you know, county jail maybe 20 times I was there. None of that ever fixed anything for me. They got me into the VA ultimately, a group of people. You know, finally convinced me that was the way to go, and I spent 2.5 years there. You know, after I got out of the VA, I've never been arrested. You know, again, it's over 10 years. You know, I'm a productive citizen now. And I guess the moral of that story is, you know, that I know a whole bunch of guys. Basically, for a lot of them, their tumble down the rabbit hole began with an arrest or a divorce, and they could never get back on their feet again. And nobody ever, you know, thought about let's treat them, you know, let's help this person. No, they just basically cast them aside. A lot of them are dead now. Really, I wonder back, all the Vietnam veterans, you know, they weren't bad people, you know, and I wonder, you know, if they would have gotten that help, you know, instead of being kind of shunted aside, would they still be alive? I think many of them, yes. You know, and I think about those guys every day. I think they didn't get treatment. I mean, what happened? More soldiers have died by their own hand that fought in Afghanistan and Iraq than have died on the battlefield. And that's an alarming thing. Hey, we have 2.5 million people in prison in this country. We're broke. Let's not put 250,000 Iraq and Afghanistan veterans in there. Let's do it another way. That it's so much better to treat at the beginning than to put guys through the justice system and other systems for 30, 40 years. You know, you could save hundreds of thousands of dollars. What society owes at the very least is the decency to ask, to find out, you know, what really happened with a veteran, you know, to take that into consideration. That's part of the social contract, because it's not just taking care of the guy who has a traumatic brain injury. It's not just taking care of the guy who lost a leg. It's taking care of the guys who have been, you know, who lost their friends, you know, in combat and can never really, you can't forget that, ever. And there are those times when sometimes one memory, a smell, a sight, a particular sound might trigger that. And it has nothing to do with weakness. It has nothing to do with criminality per se. It's just the way it is. And it's the damnable misery. We know this. We have to be smart enough and honorable enough as a society to ask that. We're going to take care of you when you come back. And then we cherry pick who we're going to care for and who we're not. When we do that, we break the social contract.